Greetings everybody. I'm Gerd Leonhard, Futurist. I'm in Zurich, Switzerland usually. Right now I'm in beautiful Lanzarote, Canary Islands, working on my next book, which is called The Good Future, and also on my next film. I've made quite a few productions about this last year in the COVID days when everything has changed upside down. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But one of those topics I keep running across in my conversations with people, and of course in my new book, is this idea of future readiness. So a few weeks ago I thought about this, as sort of a present to my fans and followers and readers and viewers all over the world, is to do a free seminar on this. So you can ask me questions. The way it's going to work today is I picked YouTube because I can have a bigger audience there, obviously, and it's very easy to put in comments. So as I'm speaking, I'm going to do roughly about a 15-minute presentation. I always say that it ends up being 150 minutes now, but I'll keep it short today. I'll try my best. And you can type in comments into the comment box. I will pull those up. And you can do that throughout my conversation. And I'll pull them up, the ones I like, I'll put them on the screen. I'll try to answer them. I'll try to figure out next time a way that you can actually say something while I'm doing the YouTube thing. I'm working on that as well. And today, by the way, is also a premiere for using a different production mechanism called the YOLO Live box, which is doing a lot of really funny things. I'll show you later. Fun things, actually funny as well. But I'll go with that into a little bit more later. So, the future mindset. Okay, I've been thinking about this for a long time. I've been a futurist for almost 20 years now. And when I think about the future, this has become sort of second nature to me, to look at the future as something that's already here. And I wonder often how we can build our mindset to be more future focused. That seems to be a major problem for many of my clients and also for people, as to actually stay abreast of the future and to think of new things that may be happening. So today is also Martin Luther King Jr. Day, January 17th. And so in honor of his passing and of the holiday, I want to give a brief quote. Obviously, Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't per se a futurist, but he said many things about the future. And one thing that he liked to say, which I'm really fond of, is the time is always right to do what is right. And when we think about the future, that I would copy this and say, well, the time is always right to do something about the future and to understand and to develop your mindset about where the future may be going and what may be happening. So the first thing that's happening here is that many things that we got used to are kind of getting switched off. It seems perpetually in the COVID crisis, we're having constant uncertainty. Like the only thing that's certain is uncertainty. And it's very unnerving, I think, for many of us and for me also. My whole business has become completely upside down and different. And there's many bad things about this, but also a lot of good things. And really what's happening is that some stations are being switched off, so to speak, the way that we think about what is right or wrong. For example, in the pharma business, I think we're going to face the fact very soon that we'll probably have to set aside the patents and trademarks for a while to deal with the global vaccination mission. And that has been discussed widely, but it's a change of paradigm, right? All over us, and really what is happening is loving this Henry Miller quote when he says, basically, the future and our destination is never a place, right? It's just a new way of seeing things. And this is so important, a new way of seeing things. This is very much like when you're in a relationship and things are getting stale. A new way of seeing things opens things up again and questions our assumptions. That's really important. And this is what we see about the future, right? It's a multitude of change. The next 10 years will bring more change than the previous 100 years. I keep saying that, and it keeps being true. It's kind of scary, actually, as all these things are coming together. And the future mindset comes out of this to really understand what is happening. This is the future mindset here, right, is paying attention. Right? The future mindset is basically symbolized by the ears of, basically understanding what goes on around us, observing, listening. Because when you listen, you're starting to pick up on things, and that changes the way that you go about practical tasks and also defining our future. And listening, observing is a skill that we can practice. So the future mindset isn't something that is like native to the genius or something, right? Apart from which, of course, the genius is always a genius the day after it was crazy. It's a very common issue here with the genius, but paying attention, right? This is what it's going to be all about. The future mindset is reading the signals, right? And there's also something really important about this constant yes or no question. Like, the future isn't about prediction. It's not about having correct predictions. It's about intuition, imagination, understanding, gut feel. Right? Jeff Bezos from Amazon, probably one of the most learned and logical people in the tech business, right? He always says he loves focus group and studies, but in the end, it's his decision based on gut feel. And so it's not about yes or no many times when we look at the future, like should we have an absolute rule about artificial intelligence, or like the patents for the pharma industry. There should not be an absolute rule that the patents have to be done away with to save the world, so to speak. But it could be a rule that could work now. Right? So yes, no, there's also maybe. We should not fall into the trap of computers, which are naturally inclined, of course, to give us yes or no answers, being binary, but humans are multinary. So very important to realize what's happening here on the future mindset. 4 different things. First, observation. Observing what's happening, talking to people, having an open mind. And that is already a lifesaver right there. I can't tell you how many people I don't have the skill of observing. Right? The second skill really is the one of understanding, right? Which means to understand, read between the lines. Understanding something is completely different than knowing it. Knowledge, zeros and ones, facts are one thing, but understanding is a very sort of fundamental thing that goes between people. And understanding is, for example, the difference of listening to your kids and understanding what they're not saying rather than what they are saying. And that is a very, implicit knowledge rather than explicit knowledge, tacit knowledge, all the things that makes us human. And imagination, of course, Einstein, right? Imagination is more important than knowledge. To be able to imagine what if. That is the future mindset. And I can't tell you again how many people are incapable of doing that because they block that path to thinking, to asking that questions. Basically, computers are for answers, humans are for questions. Kevin Kelly, right? One of my favorite authors. And on top of that, of course, that develops foresight. And foresight is kind of like, think of it like driving in a car, and when you drive down the suburbs in New Jersey or so, you're going slowly, 20 miles per hour. It's a big deal if you know observing, but it works, kind of, looking a little bit ahead. But when you're going on the Autobahn in Germany, and you're jamming along at 250 kilometers an hour, foresight has to be a mile, right, to not crash. And so today we're going at high speed everywhere, whether it's pharma or banking or, of course, futurism and government and pandemics and healthcare. We have to look ahead. So this is what we need to work on foresight, and we have to make it a priority. Kind of think of it a little bit like when you're trying to figure out how to be more fit and to eat better, right? This is a decision that we make, not to eat this or to stop habits. And so I think foresight in the future mindset is kind of like we decide that it's important to understand the future. And I think Europe has an extreme difficulty in understanding why the future is so important because, we look at the past and we're proud of the past, and then we kind of enjoy the present. The future looks scary. But I always say, the future should be respected, the present should be enjoyed, and the future should be investigated and imagined, right? So very important that we look at this kind of our freedom to deliver our future, and also that we have an actual reason to design that, right? Foresight is so crucial because also we're looking at this dichotomy between science fiction and fact. Many things that are in science fiction are really scary. They're not fact yet, but other ones are becoming fact. Self-driving cars, autonomous computing, artificial intelligence and language translation and what have you. And we have to be able to gauge this, for ourselves. What is real, what is not real, and how far away could it be? Right? We have to be able to gauge that. That's part of the future mindset. It's not always saying yes or no. It's saying yes, it could happen, but it's 10 years away. We have to be able to judge that. And that's a question of gut feel. When I worked in the music business, I said in 1999, music is moving to the cloud. And I put a lot of money behind this to build companies that were putting music into the cloud. And it was too early. It took until Apple came around with the iPhone to really get into music in the cloud. So I was not getting the right time point there. So science fiction, science fact, really crucial that we make this distinction between the two. Also very important is to take a wider view. You see the guy here on the left basically looking straight at the objective, like building a car or building a bank, or the guy on the right takes a wider view. I'm going to actually show you this exclusively. I have this fancy effect that can do this, right? So that's really important that we are able to look in both directions, right? Taking a wider view and essentially questioning our assumptions. Right? Question our assumption means that we're able to say, well, it worked until now, but it won't work tomorrow. Look at the car industry. Question the assumption that we all need a car. No, we all need mobility. We don't need the car necessarily. Hopefully the car will still be part of it. Very important. Here's a great example that I do in terms of just questioning your assumptions like this. 1 and 11 is obviously not 10. But when you look at it from the other way around, we spin it around, right? 10 is 9 and 1. And that's true. And all we've done is we've changed the viewpoint, right? We've changed the point where we're looking at. And this is so important, I think, when we think about the future. Just the viewpoint can change a whole bunch of things. I try to do that exercise every single day also because it's quite clear that our skills are changing. And again, just to give you the benefit of this whole thing here, is this pyramid of skills is changing because machines have more skills now. They have more logic, they have more understanding. So in the future, again, the future mindset will be not settled down here in intellectual knowledge and logic and data and information. It'll be settled around here, deeper knowledge, tacit knowledge, understanding, wisdom, right? That is the mindset. Of course, a mindset is by nature, of course, not something that we can download, right? And like information is downloaded essentially. So looking at these things, tacit knowledge, understanding, wisdom, purpose, consciousness, requires human agency. And this is our job of the future. The only job that we're going to have in the future is to be human. And to have foresight. And the future mindset sets us apart from animals, of course. Very few of them have a future understanding. Maybe whales and dolphins do, I don't know. Or maybe chimpanzee does to some degree. But from our point of view, this is really what we are best in, right? We're storytelling, intuition. And this is so important also, of course, to realize for our future of our work as we're going into this world that is wildly gyrating towards technology everywhere. You heard about the Vitruvian Man, right? Of course, Leonardo da Vinci, 15th century Renaissance. And now we have another Renaissance because around us is essentially this spinning wheel of accomplished technologies. I call them the game changers, and you can Google more for that. But basically the game changers, data, AI, cloud computing, and virtual reality, and so on, they're spinning around us, and now we have to find a new way of integrating humanity into this. Right? The important part will be clear. The future mindset is not a machine. It's not all about science, or for that matter, logic. I mean, science isn't just about logic, but it's art and science. As years ago, Steve Jobs, rest in peace, said, right? It's about the combination of those two things. Right? And Einstein, again, was very much on that agenda as well. It's going to be an art to understand the future. And that's an art you can hone. That's like playing music. You have to have some talent, I think, in the end, to understand more disparate things and be more creative with them. But in the end, that is kind of what we're doing, understanding this and where we're going, and this sort of connected thinking. Like here, it's quite clear the future is like a chain of dominoes, whether it's COVID, climate change, artificial intelligence, super intelligence, AGI, and of course genetic engineering and so on. But we have to understand this in a holistic way. Holistic. That means with the contextual thing. And that is what makes us different. I mean, if you walk in the bar, you meet somebody somewhere, you have a contextual understanding, you're listening, you're smelling, you're not looking at the metaverse, right? Which is one of the things I call the great reduction, to boil it down to something that we can sell. That may be interesting sometimes, but again, on the side note, I think that's really sort of a dehumanizing approach to our future. So when we look at a future mindset, it is actually holistic. and converging all the things around us into an understanding. I love this picture, the same one I used from the same series before, the guy with the ears. Now it's basically listening with giant amplifiers. Right? And from the listening, you let it influence your mind. So here's the bottom line. 1 hour per day in the future. And we're not talking about movies here. We're not talking about Netflix and binging. And we're talking about reading great books. A good list on my website. Like number 1 book to read right now is Kim Stanley Robinson, The Ministry for the Future. The Ministry for the Future. That's one to start learning right there. So 1 hour a day spending in the future, and that will change your world forever, and will give you a future mindset that will grow, sort of compound. Basically the mindset is something that is nurtured along, and all of a sudden it becomes really important. It takes a few years for that to happen, but the future mindset is the number 1 reason why you're going to have a job in the future.